dear Bagginses and Buffins.
Everything from the Vanity Fair article and provide no evidence of said trolling. Now, we're just a couple of days away from the...
Okay, well, that's just not true. Sorry. I'm sorry, Nerdrotic. That's simply not true. You just have to look. There are some people with some vicious attacks on the fact that it is multicultural. I just want to say that.
trailer, which I've already seen, and it's pretty reflective of these images. We have a Dawn Lemon elf, a black female dwarf, a very feminine Elrond, a very
But what? I don't even remember this part of the video when I watched it. A very feminine Elrond. The dude looks like Prince Charming.
Yeah, I mean, that's feminine.
I see. I see. That one. I mean, come on, Nerdrotic. That one's a bit much. I will give you that we weren't expecting a full battle armored Galadriel, sure. And then the other two we've talked about, but feminine Elrond, because he's not wearing armor. I mean, look at in the original trilogy, he's not wearing armor.
masculine Galadriel. I guess there's a little bit of good news. The showrunners did confirm that there wouldn't be any Game of Thrones nudity, sex, or violence. But the article does confirm...
Wait, I thought we did have that.
Maybe they changed their mind.
Oh, man. I was looking forward to it. How are you going to get those Game of Thrones people? They're all off watching Euphoria right now. You got to bring them back.
Confirm without saying it in so many words, we will be getting a Lord of the Rings with modern messaging. And I want to remind you once again from, believe it or not, an article from Forbes. Fans aren't gatekeeping anything. They're just wary of would-be dictators trying to take over their hobbies. And that's exactly what the activists have been doing. And as far as that term accessibility goes, well, this article does address that. We're going to replace the word anime with Lord of the Rings. Put simply, if you are a current Lord of the Rings fan, there is no one gatekeeping you from acquiring various Lord of the Rings works and enjoying them as a hobby. You don't need to befriend the higher-ups at the Tolkien Society. You can just buy it and watch it or read it or listen to it whenever you want. You see, fans love to share stuff, and they hate it when the things that they loved are stepped on, distorted, perverted, or subverted. This means it's not in the interest of fans to limit access to what they care about. And if they are genuinely curious about a hobby, then fans almost always tend to offer their help and insight. This is true. Saw that for 10 years at my comic shop. However, when you see someone online or even in the real world accuse a fan of gatekeeping, it's more likely the said accuser is not interested at all in that hobby, usually an activist, and is actually a power-hungry would-be dictator activist that wants to rule said fandom with an iron fist. And Twitter...
Should I keep going, or do you want to mention anything here about fandom gatekeeping?
I did have a thought. It's kind of escaped. Oh, I mean, the whole idea of, and this is not so much about fandom gatekeeping, but stuff he said earlier about them wanting to make it like a modern take, and I can see the worry because the Tolkien stuff it seems timeless anyway, and you wonder if you try to do a modern take, maybe in like 20 years it'll seem dated. I don't know. That's something I'm thinking of.
You know, I was gonna say the exact same thing. For me, I think they probably shouldn't have used the word modern. They should have used timeless, because I agree, and I actually think a lot of the stuff that Tolkien was writing about is actually very prevalent right now. Especially with what's going on in the world. So, for me, I think they may have misspoke there, unless they are actually going to bring in some stuff that, like you said, could feel super dated in a couple years. But in terms of the gatekeeping, I will agree with Nerdrotic. I actually have found that for the most part, true fans of these hobbies are pretty welcoming of people. There's always going to be someone, like, you're going to have some anecdotal evidence of someone being an asshole, but for the most part, people do seem pretty helpful when you're trying to get started in them. And so yeah, I just want to say I actually agree with that. But yeah, they're gonna have anecdotal evidence of someone who is not so nice to newcomers.
Twitter has been blowing up, and this is a very accurate tweet from a good friend, Yellow Flash, especially having seen the trailer. When it comes to Amazon's Lord of the Rings, I've heard more about the diversity than the actual plot. Name a show that was actually good and did that. This from
That's a pretty damning tweet, I have to say. I'll say, like, but the thing is, we don't have very much information, but it is true that the information that we do have is a lot
and
more.
that's true.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, like, I can think of shows that did that, but they didn't obsess over that in their marketing.
No, I think, yeah, that's exactly the point of the tweet, because you could literally say the same thing about Game of Thrones having a lot of strong female characters, but that wasn't the messaging. The messaging was, here's a fantasy show with some nudity. Like, that was it. That's all I needed to be hooked.
And I mean, I didn't follow it closely, but was The Witcher breaking about having black elves, or did they just do it without any?
Oh yes, yeah. Maybe they just didn't. Same as the bearded dwarf, the bearded female dwarf. I don't think they made a big fuss about it. They just did it and let the fans. So it's similar to the fact that in the original Peter Jackson movie, when Aragorn takes the arm braces from Boromir, they don't even mention it.
Yeah.
They just let it sit, and if you notice it, great, and if not, you don't need to. But they didn't make that scene all about that, and I think that's sort of what this is getting at. It's like, you can include this stuff and not go around patting yourself on the back and saying, "Look at us, we're being, multicultural and stuff." So
I feel like the Star Wars sequels tried to do that too. And
they for sure did. The marketing was, here's a female,
and they didn't turn out well. And they had a black lead, and that's fine. But the problem is that they equivocated when they started marketing in China. Like, I don't know if you ever seen this stuff, but you look at the movie posters of the North American release and the Chinese release, and Finn is like billed as being like a main character on the North American release, the black character.
Oh, is he not a main character in the Asian markets?
He is in the movies. They didn't change the movies, but just the advertising, the posters, they basically removed the actor. He's in the poster, but instead of being like a third of the size of the poster and like featured as like the main cast, he's like an inch thick on the poster and in a corner. So they don't stick to their guns. And there was a lesbian kissing scene that I think got cut from the film in the Chinese release.
That's right.
Too.
That's the part where I'm like, come on, China.
And they didn't even do it to a main character. They just picked two random.
No, it's literally in the back. I didn't even notice it. I've seen these films. I didn't notice it.
Right, but they made a big deal about putting this in, and it was just it just kind of ended up.
And then they took it out. They made a big deal that, look, we put it in, and then they went to sell it to their Asian market. Like, no, we don't have any of that.
And then they made a even speaking to what the movie ended up being, in the first film, all the marketing, they made it seem like Finn was gonna be like almost a Jedi. He had a lightsaber even in the trailers. And then,
what's up with that?
His character goes on to do pretty much nothing in the second and third movies. So it's I guess it depends how they do it. And if it's just a bunch of marketing and then maybe they don't even do what they're pretending to do, that could also be a bigger problem.
Yeah.
But
no, I think this Yellow Flash tweet is it's I have to say this is true. This is a big part of what they're marketing, and will they follow through on the on the product with this marketing? Now that there's all this hate, will they back off and maybe redo some of it? So Yeah, I think right now I do think there's just not enough information. When we get the first trailer, or if we get another inside scoop type story that has a little bit more info, we can start to kind of dissect it. But yeah, right now we really don't know what the plot is.
Yeah, and I mean, I mean, just adding, I'm all for having characters of color. Actually, I mean, I mean, I can totally see that uh, people want to see characters that maybe look more like them, and it would make them want to watch it more if they had a character of their race or gender that's uh, or even sexual orientation that's like
Mm-hmm.
a main character. And if it makes the show more relatable, then it makes and broadens the audience. I mean, that's we want more people to enjoy the show. I mean, and we want to be welcoming.
Yeah,
Uh, but yeah, if they're just if it's it doesn't need to be the advertising feature, and especially if it's the advertising feature, and then they really just fail completely in implementing it. that
yeah.
yeah,
No, I think you're right. I think a lot of the stuff you could include and just not make it your central. Like, imagine if they had redone this trailer, but didn't have the black elf and dwarf, and especially not the dwarf because with no beard, and then it just happened in the show organically. Obviously, you're gonna have to show the black elf at some point, but we don't have enough information yet. We do have a really cool scene where he catches an arrow and shoots it back. That's really sweet, but we don't have any information about what's going on, and I think that's part of the problem right now is with the marketing. All we have is we're being diverse. Here's our teaser, which is diverse, and here are some characters that are completely different than you remember them, and that's all we have. And so it's really hard for people who are deep in the lore to to parse this without any more knowledge. All they have are these few moments that we've seen, and they know that this is not truly in keeping with what they've read. So that's all they're thinking about. There's no movie, there's no true trailer to actually kind of figure out how it actually fits within the medium. So we gotta wait and see for on that one. But I will say, as for right now, this tweet is it's pretty powerful, and I am gonna have to agree with it.
yeah. But at the same time, we know nothing about the plot. So
Yeah, and that's sort
so
of what I'm trying to get at. It's like the
maybe we'll
the
be fine.
the fact that we know nothing means that people are in their own mind. They're just like, well, what's gonna happen? How does this fit? How does this? So like they're just asking these questions with no answers, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, so the fact that we know more about the diversity than the plot, it's a low bar for the us to clear about knowing more than the plot.
Yeah, but I think it just does speak to the marketing. Like, instead of just saying like this is gonna feel like you're back in Peter Jackson's Middle Earth, instead of something like that, it was look at all of this new stuff, and whether or not that's good or not, I honestly don't know. To me, I have seen Peter Jackson stuff and I love it. That's why I'm doing this. But um, I do sympathize with people who feel like this is not Lord of the Rings yet, and so we have to wait and see on a lot of this stuff. But we're gonna end this particular episode here. Let us know what you think about this, especially this tweet here that I have on the screen. Do you guys feel that there's been too much when it comes to the marketing regarding diversity? Or is that actually a good thing? Because let's face it, we're fans of Lord of the Rings. We're going to see it regardless, at least the first few episodes, right? We're all at least going to see the first episode. No one's going to not see that and just prejudge it without seeing the first episode. However, with this diversity and showing a broader range of characters, they can maybe draw in more fans. They don't need to draw us in, so maybe that's all this teaser is about, is other people, not us.
True.
I regret to announce this is the end. I bid you all a very fond farewell.